Stan Gibilisco here from the Black Hills of South Dakota with another little Murphy's Nemesis story for you. When I lived in the fraternity house on just off the campus of the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis in 1975, I believe it was the summer of 1975, maybe the summer of 76, or both, I had a little antenna in the window. Now I lived on the third floor, but it was an urban environment and there were some buildings around that were comparable in height to ours, but we had a fairly good shot at the horizon if you could just get that antenna to go above the line of the roof. Well, I did that pretty much with a little Hustler mobile antenna that I mounted on the window. But you'd wonder, now how are you going to get it ground for a little vertical like that on the third floor? An RF ground. You need an RF ground to do that, and what I did is I just dropped a radial wire straight down. Just let it dangle. I think I probably put a fishing weight or something on the end of it. It was a 20-meter Hustler mobile antenna, about 6 or 7 feet high, including the resonator. Just stuck that somehow with a mount on the window and dangled a 16-foot wire straight down. So in effect I had a vertical dipole antenna with one element shorter than the other because of the loading inductor, but it resonated at 14 megahertz, and I used that antenna and worked all kinds of DX. In fact, in a contest, I believe it was field day that I tested it, I tested a 3-element Yagi at 50 feet in one of my friend's houses on that contest and made something like 50 contacts in 1 minute. I wasn't a real fast operator anyway, on CW, and then I turned around and used that vertical on the window with the same amount of power, made 60 contacts in 1 minute. So the thing did work. Murphy probably was pretty frustrated over all that. Murphy's been kind of happy though lately in some of the little glitches that you may have noticed in my videos. You may have noticed that some of them don't come to the full screen anymore. I'm trying to figure out why, and I'm trying to figure out a way around that, and I think I've done it. I think I've got Murphy this time. In addition to making the thing fill up the full screen and have perhaps even better resolution, the file sizes are only about a tenth of what they were. So they upload a lot faster and they consume a lot less space. So if this experiment works, you should be seeing this video on the full screen with a few little curly cues in the beginning and the end, just for fancy effect. Now I'm just going to show you a little diagram of how that antenna was put together. Well, here's the basic arrangement before I installed the antenna. As I said, my room in the fraternity house, some people would call it a frat house, but I really didn't like that much. Fraternity house that I lived in at the University of Minnesota, Minneapolis in 1975. I believe this was the hot summer of 1975. Oh, it got over 90 degrees every doggone day in that room up there. We didn't have air conditioning, but it was a really cool house. And we went to the lakes in Minneapolis and stuff a lot of times in the summer to cool off. It was a good time. But on field day, I remember I put up an antenna, and what it really amounted to was a Hustler antenna. And it has a little resonator right about in the middle. I don't know if they still make those little mobile antennas. They were good little antennas. The thing was for 14 megahertz CW, of course. That is the only mode that W1GV. Back then I was WA0 OKV, Ocean Kilo Victor. But anyway, here's the arrangement. About a 6-foot thingy sticking out of there. Of course, a very short feed line, and that's always a plus. And in order to get it ground, I just dropped a 16-foot wire straight down. So in effect, I had a 20-meter dipole, vertical dipole, which is known as a very effective antenna. Here's me, and there's my radio, if we didn't already guess. It's about 30 feet up. Well, there wasn't much else too much higher around at that time. I think since then they've built a 10-story building right next door to the west. That was the direction I faced, and brother, in the afternoons with that sun beating in there, it was already 97, 98 degrees outside, over a parking lot with all that pavement, made it 100, 105. Then that sun had come in that room. It wasn't much cooler than that in there. Some of those nights were pretty sweaty nights, but anyway, that was then and this is now. And sometimes I wish it'd get that hot around here in the Black Hills. Last summer it only got up to 82 degrees. I think that was as high as it got up here at 1 mile altitude. But anyway, that was the arrangement, and this thing really did the job. It really works. Now Murphy probably knew it'd work pretty well, but I don't think Murphy had any idea that it would work as well as it did. Sometimes, if something can go wrong, it won't. In fact, if something can go right, sometimes it'll even go better than right. So Murphy's Law, that old bugaboo that we make such jokes about, I guess it really doesn't apply so much after all. But there's just one problem with my saying something like that. There's just one problem with my saying something like that. Murphy heard me. Oh Lord, only God knows what's going to happen to me now. Stan Jabalisco signing off. Till the next time, 73, and so long.